This is BMI Redefined with Jen and Mo.
All right.
Welcome back to BMI Redefined with
Jen.
and Mo. Good morning.
Good morning.
So today's a new day.
Yes, it is.
You know why?
Because we're here.
And I'm married now.
I know!
I'm like a married old lady.
Beautiful. Just beautiful. You are the most beautiful bride.
Oh,
It was so pretty.
It was so much fun. I had such a good time.
It was good.
Yeah. It was very relaxing. Mm-hmm. And I can't believe that my new husband and I, we put our wedding on in a month and a half. Now, that would cause anybody anxiety.
Yeah, it would.
Right?
It would.
But we actually got it done.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a lot of drama.
No.
I mean, there was a little bit of drama, but not a lot of drama.
No, there
I don't
wasn't.
think there was really any drama.
Not really.
We got our rings like the week before we got married.
You did your dress made.
Got my dress made, and it came in like the Monday before we got married. My new stepdaughter, her dress came in the Thursday before we got married.
Yes.
But I wasn't stressed.
No.
I was like, well, you know what? If it comes, it comes. And if it doesn't, I've got other clothes at home. I have shorts and a T-shirt.
The music was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Yes.
That was,
Yeah.
the music was gorgeous. Yeah. Yeah, harp and piano and voice. And, it was gorgeous. But I have to say, though, a week before the wedding, I had a little teeny tiny bit of an anxiety attack.
Yeah, you did.
I did. Yeah. And I kind of went in my hole, and I just kind of laid in bed for the day to calm myself. Took a lot of deep breathing exercises, a lot of yoga stuff that I don't know yoga, but I think I just do it.
Yeah. I think the deep breathing is very important, as you said. And, as we're exercising and training, that's important, but also as a vocalist.
Yeah.
I mean,
As a
the
singer.
importance of deep
Right.
breathing. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And, it's very, very interesting, though, how really I think there's like a book called Breathe. A friend of mine was telling me about it. Did I tell you about this?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. So the other day I was telling Andy about this book, but my friend told me about, and he goes, I don't want to hear about it. And I'm like, no, you have to hear about this. It's really cool. It's like if you put a piece of tape over your lips and make yourself breathe through your nose at night.
You mean we could tape your mouth?
That's what I told Andy. I said, you could tape my mouth shut. And he's like, that just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound right.
Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, so breathing through your nose, your nasal cavity is very therapeutic. And there's this whole book. I don't know who wrote it, and I probably shouldn't bring it up. But someone look it up and let us know.
Yeah.
But it's called Breathe.
Okay.
And it's on the New York's bestseller list.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, we
I
should
don't
definitely
know.
check this out.
So breathing is, I mean, we all know breathing's huge, but breathing is very, basically. But breathing can be very therapeutic.
It can be. Yeah.
And it can almost be like a mantra. I mean, it's used in yoga. It's used, in a lot of, Eastern thought too.
Well, and this you just tell somebody to take a deep breath. It just means pause
Right.
for a second and take a deep breath and really
Right.
think about whatever's going on or what has caused you to take shorter breaths. And it's not just because you've been working out with me or whatever. What's causing that?
Right.
It
Right.
could be something psychological, situational, emotional, something going on.
Exactly.
And so just to pause for a few seconds and actually take a deep breath gives you time to kind of clear your mind and maybe somehow reduce some of that anxiousness that's built up in your system.
Right, exactly. And, I think for me right now, a lot, and I think basically through my whole life, I think that my anxiety has been caused by an underlying hormonal situation. I really do.
Interesting.
Because it always, can we go into this? I'm just going
Sure.
to go into it.
Sure.
Because it always happens around my period.
Okay.
I mean, women are going to be listening.
Yeah.
To this. They know.
True.
They know.
Yeah.
And before I had my surgery, I would eat for that whole week. And I mean, I wouldn't like, it's not a normal eating. It would be like, I'd go one place and get one thing. I go to another place and get another thing, another place, go another thing. And I bring it all home and eat it.
Okay. Because the hormones were
Because the
driving
hormones
you,
are just
were driving
driving
that,
me.
that
Right,
behavior.
Right. And not all of it. I mean, some of it too was behavioral, of course. A lot of it was. But I think that hormone wise,
Yeah.
a lot of it was, driving that. And
That was your response.
that was my response. And so when I'm about to, have my little tacky, I get a little rush of a dizziness, but I get shaky.
Okay.
I get, and as I'm getting into the panic attack, I do hyperventilate. And my heart rate, like right where my throat is, it just goes
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And it's like I can't stop it. And that's when I think that's when I start taking those deep breaths. And then I calm myself down. But I've only learned that through, therapy and stuff. But anyway, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was gonna say, in addition to those immediate responses
Right.
to an anxious moment or a hormonal change, do you also find you have some other symptoms that we see among anxiousness in patients or clients is, trouble sleeping or extreme sweating, not just from working out with me, but just like, randomly kind of thing?
So I have only experienced the sweating thing one time.
Really?
Out of all of these years,
Yeah.
one time.
Okay.
That's it. Never have I ever experienced the sweating.
Okay.
Nope. And the sleep, I can sleep anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
So what we're finding out is when you have anxious moments or some type of anxiety going on, you're not
Yeah.
going to have all the symptoms.
No.
There'll be certain
And
ones.
it doesn't happen like right away. Right? Like if you're in an anxious, like I could have something happen to me like a week ago and my body will respond the week later. You never
Okay.
know when that anxiety panic attack is going to happen.
Well, and that's what some of these researchers in the Age of Anxiety Time magazines that we've been looking at and the journals we've been looking at have talked about that very instance as far as when do those
Stars align.
emotions
Almost.
when is all
Yeah.
that, when is your response to
Right.
whatever drew the anxiety to happen in your life in the first place?
Well, and I'm late for everything. I was late coming out of the womb. So it doesn't surprise me that it happens a week later. I even have a hat that says, I'm not on time. So there you go.
Well,
yeah.
what about, okay, so one thing that I've noticed in myself is if there's anxiety going on around me or within me, I tend to be one of those people who get the muscle attention. So I haven't had like the migraines kind of thing. And I
No,
have friends that experience that. But I do get the muscle tension, the tightness in the neck, the tightness in the back, shoulder. Basically, it's upper shoulder and neck related for me if there's something anxious going on in my life. Do you ever experience that kind of thing?
No.
No. Okay, so see, we have various different symptoms.
Yeah. No, that I don't do.
Interesting.
But I felt though enough where I felt like I had to go have, something. I don't know. I felt like I needed to do something about it. And I'm a person who loves to talk.
No kidding.
I have some problems and I'd like to discuss them. And so
Here we are.
Yeah, and here we are, a public forum. No, but I have friends who are like, I'm not going to go to therapy. It just doesn't work for me.
Really?
Okay. And I'm like all about the therapy. I'm like, hey, but I don't want to use it as a crutch either.
Right.
And therapists do CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Right?
Yeah.
And do you want to say anything about that?
Well, it's interesting because I was reading a journal article about that recently, and it talked about how there was a Michelle Newman out of Penn State University that you and I have both studied some of her work.
Newman.
she,
That's Seinfeld, right?
yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, where was I?
Michelle Newman.
Yes, Michelle Newman. So
From Penn
what
State.
she was talking about was, one of the biggest problems with anxiety is that, say you have anxiety over social situations or something like that. Well, you might tend to shy away from those situations, meaning that you wouldn't bring on the anxiety or the anxious moments, but actually that feeds the disorder.
Right.
Because you're shying away. So it actually becomes what they call a fear of fear. Like you're just going to shy away from it. So what she is talking about in the article that you and I were reading earlier is that the CBT combats that to where it actually helps you deal with it. So since you've experienced some of the CBT practices, you want to explain a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, and I also think too that people shy away from it, but then people can be also, because of their anxiety, they can also become maybe a little bit more aggressive in other things. And we didn't talk about that.
Interesting.
But, to maybe cover up that anxiety, right?
Gotcha, yeah.
To cover up that fear. So they may go the other way. I didn't go that way, but, so the CBT, the more you avoid the source of your anxiety, the stronger your fear of that thing becomes, right? So you brought up the fear factor, right?
Yeah. I don't like spiders. And so there was this show, The Fear Factor, that I used to watch that had somebody who was afraid of spiders. And they literally brought a whole room full of spiders to help this person do. That's not CBT, is it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
To experience the fear, because that would not work on me.
No.
I don't think that's CBT.
No, I don't know. We'd have to talk to like a real, psychologist
Yeah.
about. CBT really talks about how you feel, right? And
Oh, so not having the spiders in the room, but going back to how I would feel if I
we're in a room of spiders.
Got you.
Exactly.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And I mean, and a lot of CBT is used for trauma, right? You okay?
Yes.
Did you just get a chill of the spiders?
Yes.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Go ahead.
Are we gonna have to do a therapy session
Yeah,
here?
yeah, we're good.
Okay. Good, because I'm not equipped to do that.
Okay.
Not deal with your problems, that's for sure.
Okay.
But okay,
We
we're
all
gonna
have-
move on.
We all have issues. We know that.
I don't.
No, you don't.
Not anymore. No. Okay. So lie. That's a lie.
We all do, Mo.
So of course we all do, of course. And the thing is that CBT is where, it deals a lot with trauma too. So if you had something that you're afraid of, okay, then the therapist will bring you back to that time when you try to help you when you first felt that fear.
Oh, wow.
Like, say you had parents that argued, okay?
Okay.
So, well, when was the first time that you felt that argument?
Yeah, yeah.
When they argued, how did that make you feel?
How to make you feel.
And where did that make you feel in your body?
Right.
Like, where in your body did that make you feel? And then, can you rate that feeling? Like 1 to 10, how does that make you feel? Okay, now think about that and go back. Now we're going to revisit it again. And they bring you down so that if you feel it at a 10, which is your strongest point,
Right.
they want you to leave there at that session feeling it at a 1 or none. So that when you
wow.
think about it again, it doesn't trigger that 10 feeling. It doesn't trigger any feeling, or it triggers like a 1 or a 2. I mean, that's my interpretation of it. I don't know if that's completely, true or not, but that's kind of, that's how I walk, how I walk away with it, when I was having the anxiety of the surgery, for the skin removal, I worked through some CBT for that too, because I was going to be losing a part of my body. It was going to be gone.
Right.
It was going to be cut off. So,
Yeah. Well, same way with the hip replacement.
Right?
I mean, I remember before I had the hip replacement, I just remember a day when I was thinking, they're going to take a piece of the bone out of me and replace it with titanium.
Right.
And that was, I would start thinking about that. And that's big.
It is big. It's huge.
I can walk, I can run. I mean, same thing. We can
Yeah,
do all this, which
absolutely.
we couldn't do before that procedure. But it took me about 6 months
Yeah.
to get ready for that procedure.
Well, and you were worried about it, and and I think that's important too, to know what anxiety is. Anxiety is not knowing what's going to happen in the future, which is what we
Right.
brought up in the last episode.
Right.
So, when you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna be able to walk again. My hip is really bad. What if the surgery doesn't work? What if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't happen? What blah blah blah.
All the what ifs.
And then you go to your doctor, and the doctor says, well, this is exactly what's going to happen. And he takes some of that fear away. And that is, that takes away some of that anxiety, some of that fear. And that's what it's all about, right? Is having a healthy mindset on what's going to happen.
Right. Or perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, and sometimes people, and we talked about this, sometimes people may need to be put on some medication to help equalize, to find that healthy, to calm down enough to find that healthy mindset.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well,
Along with the CBT.
Exactly. And it was another researcher from UPenn, Valerio, was talking about there's not a single path to anxiety.
No.
I mean, it could be, if it's biological or genetic, it's situational, environmental, whatever is driving those feelings. So because there are different paths to get to those feelings, there's going to be different treatments or ways to address those feelings, like we were just talking about. I mean, if it's biological, genetic, then there might be a medication involved,
right?
To change those chemical reactions that are happening as you respond to that stimuli.
Experts say that there's a healthy dose of self-awareness, right? And it is good to be self-aware.
I could say this has brought a whole new level of self-awareness in many, many people during this pandemic.
Yeah. I mean,
because you have time to think about yourself.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, not to
That's
make
true.
it.
And we're going to talk about this the next time, in teens and everything, but teens deal with anxiety a little differently.
Right.
Hyperactivity or mood swings and things like that. And I'm like, well, I must be a teenager. No, I'm teasing.
Or retreating. Yeah,
exactly.
Which I tend to.
Yeah,
you
tend to do. Right.
I go off the radar.
Exactly. But the thing is that being mindful of it and when it's happening, and nipping it in the bud and saying, okay, and this is what I've learned, is that I know when, like right before it's happening, I know. So I'm like, okay, I need to sit down. I need to take a deep breath. I need to have some water. I need to just close my eyes, go to the ocean. That's where I go. That's my thing. And I know you go to the water probably too,
Oh, yeah.
a lot. Yeah. And just kind of just calm down and listen. And I put some music on. And if I don't have music, it's fine. But I just take those deep breaths and I try to stop it before it really goes into high gear. There are very few times that I can't stop it. There are times that I can't stop it. And there's, and I might drive myself to the emergency room, and it's like, and I know exactly what's happening. I mean, but the thing is, and that's probably happened, like, I think 3 times in my entire life that I've actually done that.
Okay.
Driven myself. I'm like, I'm going to the emergency. But I think that, if you can recognize it and have the tools to help you, get beyond it,
Right.
then you've mastered it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And the key word there is the tools.
Yes.
And that's what we're learning about. We're studying these journals and articles and these researchers is that they're teaching us and others how to put that toolkit together.
Right.
So with the cognitive behavioral therapy and different methods to actually address the anxious moments, the anxiety that's going on in our lives. And like you said, to step back, kind of hit the pause button, take a deep breath, and try to analyze, not from a deep point, but kind of analyze the situation or what's going on.
Right.
Why am I feeling this way? That's a question that I have sometimes, like, well, why am I feeling this way? What was the driver? What was the catalyst
Right.
that started this range or this spectrum of emotions that I'm feeling right now?
Right.
And so being able to just step back for a second and think about it from that perspective is something that, that's a learning process.
Right.
It really is. It isn't being like, oh, I'm having an anxious moment. Well, then step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's different from every person.
No, and when I was when I was in high school or in my 20s or 30s, I mean, I would like experience one of those things that we were talking about, like the the pulsating, the heart palpitations or shaking, okay?
Yeah.
And hyperventilating. But when those were happening when I was younger, I would just get even more wrapped up into it, like, oh my gosh, and I'd make it even be more anxious because that was happening. Right. So that's an example of the anxiety on top of the anxiety, where now I'm like, okay, I've got a little pulsating thing going on. I must be anxious about something. Maybe I had too much coffee on top of,
We're having coffee right now.
We're having coffee right now at Starbucks. But, the thing is that I am mature enough to understand what's happening. And I'm very in tune to my body, much more than I was my younger self.
Right.
Well,
and just the thing we talked about this, like kind of when we were in grad school and all that.
Yeah.
What was our go-to? And that's when, I started playing a lot of tennis.
Yeah, right.
And I feel bad for people that I play tennis against because I'm not that great at it.
Yeah.
But man, I can hit that ball
But
hard.
you can hit that right, exactly.
Like, Diddy, that was a serve. It didn't even go in. I know, but it felt good.
That's right. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
But I mean, it's like, where are we channeling?
Yeah.
Like you said, what are other ways that we implement those feelings? Now, where do we channel those feelings into what activities? Or are we stepping back for a second, saying, and it's okay, to like, do sports or whatever, but really stepping back, like you say, taking the deep breath and analyzing it and figuring out what's driving it rather than just reacting to it.
Right. Yeah. And while you were doing tennis in grad school, I was eating ice cream.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is also my reality. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's a different reaction.
Everybody's a different reaction, right? Yeah. Coffee, ice cream. I think this is another thing too. When anxiety needs to be addressed is when it starts interfering with your life. Yeah. And if it's not interfering with your life, then it's not, I don't think, a big deal. Like for me, roller coasters. I'm not a big roller coaster fan. I go on them because now I get to call them my stepkids. Yay! But they're like, oh, come on, let's go on them, And one of the kids has a real fear for roller coasters like I do. Okay. And the other one, let's do it. Where's the fastest one and the most loopy one, I understand that one's anxiety. Mm-hmm. And so I go on like the little baby ones. And so with that particular child, and and we love it.
You have fun.
And we have fun. This one's at the point where, Maureen, it's not that bad. Like now they've surpassed me.
Yes.
Like they're they're like, oh, the baby ones. These are babies. And I'm like, well, that's a little fast, I think, So I see the growth in them facing their anxiety and their fears because they're doing it. Because if you do it, then it won't be so scary. But if it's impacting your life or impeding you from doing something, that's a real anxiety issue, and that's where you need some help.
Well, and like you were saying, it can when you're with your children. So, for example, I have a quick little roller coaster story. So we had a mother-daughter trip. So we went to Ohio. We went to Cedar Point.
Oh, yeah.
Where they have the highest and fastest roller coaster called the Dragster.
Oh, yeah.
So we get there, and the girls are, I mean, I'm looking at stories about this roller coaster on the way. I've been teaching like health and safety classes at the university and all, like, there are no stories. It's safe as everything. I'm like, good.
Right.
So we get there and I'm watching it goes straight up. It does a little turn and comes straight down.
Okay.
So it's real short, like 60 seconds, what have you. So all day I'm looking at it, I'm watching it from a distance, and the girl's like, come on. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. And so then it rains. And so I'm like, okay, so maybe that's off the table. No, it's still moving, but then there's this whole group of men in suits analyzing it. And I said, hey, what's going on? Well, it's going too fast. We need to slow it down since the rain. I'm like, okay, good. So by the end of the day, the park is almost about to close. The girls have me each by my hands, walking me into the line, and we stand there and we wait, and we did it. Yeah. But I did it because I wanted to do it with them. Because I could have just said, okay, girls, wave. But they wanted me to do it. So that was my incentive for overcoming my fear of going straight up and coming straight down. And it really went by rather quickly.
Well, no. Okay.
But I was on my mind all day long.
But it's your thoughts. Because listen.
It was my thoughts.
So we go to, when we go to Disney World, what's that one? Space Mountain. It's inside. And it just goes around.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I love that thing.
Okay, yeah, right. I do too. That's one of my favorite ones. Okay, but I have a little anxiety every time I ride. And do you want to know why? I'm fine. Except there's a sign there right before you go in that says, if you have high blood pressure, which I don't have.
Right.
If you have a heart condition, which I don't have.
Right.
If you are like 4'9", which I am not.
Right.
You should not ride this ride. Oh, or a pacemaker, which I do not have. Or pregnant, which I am not.
Yeah.
Okay. I am not any of those things.
But because that sign's there?
Because that sign's there, and I read it, and I sit in that thing with the bar, and I'm always afraid the bar is just going to open up and break open, and I'm going to fall out. And I do that to myself every single time.
Oh, the kids laugh at me because I don't just hold on to the bar. My hand is somewhere
on the chair.
On the chair.
In case the bar. I know. I agree. I know. And and the kids are like, what is your problem?
I know, same here.
And I'm like, okay, just let me just be this way, okay?
But I also, and the kids will verify, I scream during the slow parts. And I'm totally silent with nothing on the fast parts. So I'm like contrary. I'm a contrarian.
You're a contrarian roller coaster. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and and I love what they say in here in this book. Hallie Levine, I think is what her name is.
Yes.
Where she says, when it comes to anxiety, it helps to follow the Goldilocks rule. Not too little, not too much, but just right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
this is where you were saying, kind of slow down your thinking by taking some deep breaths.
Right.
Preferably in a quiet space, which I do. I know that my safe place is in my bedroom, on my bed, and I just lie there with my puppies.
Yes.
And I just take some deep breaths, and that's my safe. You have to find a safe place.
Yeah.
You have to have a safe place.
Yes.
A safe place where you can rest your head. And and think of it this way: too much of a good thing is bad for you. So too much anxiety,
right,
is not good for you.
Too much of anything.
Right. And and make the anxiety work for you. I haven't really quite mastered that yet. There have been a couple of times where I've made the anxiety be in my corner, but not always.
Well, and we also, in the motivational speaking or even teaching, as you know, we call it the edge.
Right.
Like when you're up there, you're performing, show must go on, you got the edge, you got the butterflies flying in formation, hopefully, like the Blue Angels. And so, but there, but there's a little unrest there.
Right.
And especially if you're not completely prepared or you're not sure what the Q&A is going to look like, there is a little bit of anxiety that comes in with that scenario as well. Absolutely.
Well, and this was really interesting because my my husband has a very high powered job, as does yours.
Yes.
And if I were in that job, for me personally, I don't know about you, but for me personally, if I were in the job that my husband has, it would be too stressful for me. I would be 700 pounds because I would be eating through it. I know me. I'd be having anxiety attacks, and it just would not be a good situation for me.
Well, no, and the corporate.
Yeah.
Now I was in the corporate world for a little while, and that's
Right.
I'm much better in academia and training and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. I found more one-on-one in groups of people rather than
Yeah.
the tight schedule and all that. So I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. It would not work for me.
And it says in this book, The Age of Anxiety for Time, and I want to just keep reiterating that because these are just such great books. It says those with high levels of power tend to experience less anxiety than those lower on the totem pole because they have more control.
Interesting.
Uh-huh. What do you think of that? You can't
Yeah.
automatically pole vault to the top of your company, but there are things you can do to increase your sense of control. Steps as small as choosing which project to start or finish or which emails to answer right away can make you feel more as if you're leading the ship and not just part of the runaway train. And some, and that's interesting because I know that when I plan, I have more control. And when I don't
Right.
plan, I don't have that control. And that's when I feel out of control. And that's when the anxiety happens because I'm not prepared enough. Aha.
Well, and that's
Right?
yeah. Well, like I said, when you get in, you're giving a talk or teaching class, whatever, and you don't feel completely prepared when you walk in, then there's a direct correlation between preparedness and level of anxiety.
Exactly.
I definitely see that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so a psychologist who wrote a book, Tamara Chansky wrote a book, Freeing Yourself from Anxiety, talked about how our nerves or how we react to a situation is actually analogous to a roller coaster, as we were just talking about. And one takeaway from this message, it says, once you've gotten control of your anxiety, you'll be able to dive back into the moment and make your roller coaster of nerves work for you. Which is kind of what we were just talking about, that edge, that energy that you have when you're walking into a situation where there is some anxiety or some unsureness or some uncertainty about the future. So what do you think about that? Making your nerves work for you.
Well, like I said, I haven't really quite figured that out yet. I'm at a point right now where I'm just trying to get them under control,
Yeah.
which I do.
You do.
I do. I'm not too much of a basket case.
You're awesome.
Pretty much.
Well, I get that too.
Yeah.
People think you're so energetic and enthusiastic and all that. And some of it is it's like if you could really see what was going on.
Right.
Well, it's funny because when I was on TV a few years back, my co-host said, Jenny, Erin was so funny. She said, I would just love to be inside your head and see what's going on. And I'm like, oh, Erin, that's a scary place. you don't want to go there.
No one ever wants to go. And we all have our little narratives.
Do
in
we
our
get?
head.
I guess we both get told that we're entertaining at times.
I guess
people just kind of sit back and cross their arms, just kind of just wait for what we're going to say
right?
next.
Exactly. And then we just kind of bullshit through the whole thing.
Exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Basically.
pretty much. Yeah. So anyway, I think the biggest takeaway, from this whole conversation is that I'm anxious like a roller coaster.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks, Jenny. This really made me feel better, less anxious.
I just thought that was a nice takeaway from this article.
No, it isn't. No, it's
It
good.
is.
It's good. And the thing is that I'm on a serious note. I think the biggest takeaway of this whole thing is that you can live a healthy life, even if you do have anxiety, with the right tools, with the right mindset. And if it's not interfering with your life, you're okay. But it's when it starts to interfere with your life, that's when you should probably seek some outside help.
Right. And
Right.
get some guidance.
And get some guidance, some tools. And the thing with anxiety is, which I'm kind of glad that I do deal with it, is because it's not something that you have to deal with like every single day or every minute of your life. Once you get those tools, that really helps you through the path.
Right. And when you feel like you were talking about, when you feel the anxiety coming on or the anxious moments, instead of just shutting down and reacting right at that point, just stepping back, taking a deep breath, finding your happy place, as you said. Where do
Right.
you go to just kind of chill?
Right.
It's like the teenagers are like, oh, just chill. Well,
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
something behind
there's
that.
something behind that.
Right? Right?
Yeah, just take a moment to chill and figure out the situation and then
Yeah.
move on with your day, your project, your phone call, your email, or your text message, or whatever you're about to have to address that you had some uncertainty about.
Exactly. And just being mindful, right?
Exactly.
And as you get older, you are more mindful of who you are as a person and your body, and you've lived with yourself for so long. There's no other alternative.
Right.
I mean, seriously. I mean, you have to completely be out to lunch if you're not into how you feel or,
Right.
your
Or seeing,
body.
or like I say, seeing the signs.
Or seeing the
You know,
signs.
yeah,
right.
if my trap muscles or something are starting to really tighten up, I'm thinking, okay, that's not the workout I did yesterday. Okay,
Right.
what's going on? There's some type of emotional something going on, and just kind of figure out how to address that right in the
Exactly.
moment, rather
Exactly.
than let it linger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm looking at, going forward with all this, and
Yes.
we're thinking we will continue with the Age of Anxiety and the Time Journal series
Yes.
that we're excited to be talking with you guys about.
And let's talk about what we're going to do next week.
Yeah.
Okay, so next week we're going to talk about Are the Kids All Right? So we're going to be talking about basically chapter 2 of this. And children and teenagers are at a particularly high risk of developing anxiety disorders that can have a lifelong impact. And especially now during COVID, even before COVID, with bullying and social media and things like that. And then we throw COVID into this mix. And there are kids who are just not able to handle being at home all the time without their friends. And that's causing a level of anxiety and depression and stress and different things like that.
Yeah, and we'll be talking with some psychologists, along the way as well,
Right.
about who can give some insights
Right.
to us and all of our listeners.
And we'll be talking about testing, which, kids are coming up with ACTs and SATs and things like
Everything's
that.
going on right now.
We're going to talk about girls and stress, in as a teenager, as a girl, and how to prevent anxiety in kids. How can we help our kids not have to deal with so much?
Right.
And
Well, instead of internalizing it, figuring
Right.
out, like we say, how to kind of express ourselves, and
Right.
really a lot of it, Mo, and I think you would agree, is really about communication.
it is, yeah, it is about
And they say, oh,
communication.
well, we text and we social media and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but there's
No.
a whole kind of human communication that we're going to talk about it too in this
Right.
as well.
Okay, now have you ever heard of Shades of Grey, that book?
I've heard of it.
You haven't read it?
No.
Oh, I'm buying you a copy. It's good. Anyway, okay. So, anyway, we're going to be talking about not Shades of Grey, but we're going to be talking about,
I think I'm blushing right now.
you are totally blushing. So you have heard of it.
I've heard of it. I just haven't.
Yeah, I've got a book. I think I might have an extra book for you. Anyway, we're going to be talking about the different shades of adolescent anxiety, which is different.
Yes.
Okay. Are you done blushing? Gosh. You're so funny.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, this has been an awesome conversation. Look at that segue, honey.
Right?
Let's grab our coffees.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yay.
We're drinking our coffee from Starbucks today.
Yes.
And
Love it.
just enjoying this conversation.
Yeah.
And we look forward to next time with you guys. So thank you for joining us. And we would love to hear comments. We're on all of the podcast stations, any directory or podcast source you get your podcast from. We're there. We have room for comments and questions. So reach out to us. We want to hear from you.
And if you have anything that you'd like us to talk about, any topic, let us know.
Exactly.
We will dig into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Love
Okay.
it.
Bye.
Bye.